If you think fairy tales in sports only come true on the field, pull up a chair.
So you went from $1 million in 20 to $60 million in sales in 4 years?
Yeah, maybe even a little less.
Now, are you getting up in the morning and saying, how?
Well, for starters, I wasn't getting up in the morning because I wasn't sleeping.
What started as the golf manufacturing industry's little engine that could ended up growing 18,000% before its owner sold it for 400 times his original investment.
I wish I could sit here and tell you that this was all deliberate and I had some big master plan. Like, I didn't.
One of golf's most stunning stories and one of its most unusual personalities.
Would you be insulted if I called you a golf nerd?
Not at all. It's literally my Instagram handle. Golf Nerd Sam is my Instagram handle.
They don't call me an astute reporter for nothing.
Sam Hahn, the man behind the L.A.B golf putter, today on The Big Swing. Hi again, everyone. Jimmy Roberts with you. Thanks so much for joining us here on The Big Swing once more. The world of golf starting to rev its post-holiday engines. Last week, the PGA Tour opened its season in Hawaii. This week, golf's great commercial bazaar, the PGA show, is in Orlando. We'll be, of course, there for that. And speaking of hitting the road, the LPGA, the oldest women's professional sports league in America, celebrated its 75th birthday in Pebble Beach this past week, and we tagged along. Good work, I suppose, if you can get it. And while we were out on the Monterey Peninsula, we took the opportunity to catch up with one of the great characters in the game, a man who is part of a remarkable story. Sam Hahn barely graduated high school, and even then only did so because a kind teacher didn't want to traumatize his mother. Never went to college, but nonetheless will soon be speaking at the University of Pennsylvania's famed Wharton School of Business. You'd imagine they'll probably want to hear how a bar owner and musician turned businessman was able to take a $500,000 investment and 8 years later sell his little enterprise for $200 million. Along the way, Hahn created a cult, his baby, L.A.B golf putters.
So first of all, thanks for making the trip down here.
Oh, my pleasure.
You know, of course, golf nerd that you are. I remember when I called you and I said, well, would you come down to Pebble Beach? And I don't know if you said this, but the tone in your voice was, trick question?
Exactly.
Man, what an interesting year for you.
Oh, it's been wild.
Right.
It's been nuts, yeah.
Yeah. You had your moment in the sun when J.J. Spaun won the U.S. Open with that remarkable putt on the 72nd hole. You know, immediately everybody's focused on his putter.
Totally.
You know, and what was that moment like for you?
It was surreal. It was totally surreal.
Two putts.
Watching tour events when we've got putters in play, I've learned over the years not to do it with anyone. It's not it's not pleasant.
Is it a little dangerous?
Oh, it's terrible. I'm an anxious wreck, and like I live and die by every putt they hit, and it's exhausting and it's intense, and you know, a couple things interesting about that moment. So, you know, as you know, and a lot of folks know, we sold a majority of the company to a really awesome PE firm called L.A.B. And so that happened in July, but in June, when the U.S. Open was happening, the transaction was imminent, you know, and it was going to happen. And I wasn't feeling like, obviously I was excited about, you know, any number of aspects of that whole thing, but there was something that didn't feel quite right, and to get the closure.
Didn't feel quite right about the transaction?
Yeah, like, you know, like letting go. Like
wait, somebody wants to give you like $200 million, and that doesn't feel right?
Well, for starters, like I don't mean to sound cheesy, but like I'm not super crazy motivated by money,
Okay.
and L.A.B became something much bigger emotionally dare I say, spiritually than anybody who was involved ever anticipated. And it was ours, you know, and it was our baby, it was our everything. We all lived and died by every single thing that happened in Labland. And here we were about to, you know, hand the keys to somebody else.
Right.
And when JJ made that putt, it all felt right. Like we'd done it all. We were nobody from nowhere with this big ugly putter that sounded like crap, felt like crap. Branding was weird, you know, and we, you know, pushed through, kind of got a little bit of, you know, momentum going here and there. And then, you know, we'd had a couple moments along the way, and there was this ascent to where all of a sudden we were nobody from nowhere to this relevant brand, but nothing, you know, puts a bow on something like that than like a 64-foot putt in a U.S. Open.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
So that day was really intense. It was such a special moment for everybody, and it was, in a weird way, sort of closure on chapter 1 of L.A.B, for, you know, for me and for the company.
So for those who know that you're a brand that they're not familiar with,
Right.
they might think that you're a conventional business story. I can't think of anything less conventional in terms of the golf industry than how you started the company, how you put it together, and how it grew.
Yeah, I mean, one day when you know, somebody writes the book, like, I mean, they're parallel storylines around some awesome work we did, great decisions that we made, you know, all kinds of stuff, and a lot of good luck. And, you know, kind of at each little, you know, chapter, there was a good break starting right at the beginning. So
You went to Harvard Business School, right?
me, right? Yeah. Absolutely. I graduated high school with a 1.7 grade point average. I actually didn't graduate. I had a wonderful history teacher, Myra Loris, who called me in 2 days before graduation and asked if I was planning on going to college. I said, no. Why? And she's like, because you didn't pass your final, but I'm going to pass you anyway because I can't do that to your mother. So she passed me through. I graduated high school, and I was a musician. And
Guitar player.
Guitar player and a songwriter, and I loved arranging bands. I had a big 12-piece band.
Right.
And parlayed that into a booking agency, and then eventually opened up my own venue in Eugene, Oregon. So I was, you know, in the music scene, bar scene, which left me plenty of time during the day. And I lived right next to a municipal golf course that was dog friendly. And I had a dog, so I started playing just to walk him around, met a couple of cool guys that were really good players, and I was, you know, about a 17, 18 handicap when I was 21, and I was a scratch player by the time I was 23. Like, I went full psycho golf. And so that was all I did. And then fast forward, you know, 15 or so years, I'm a scratch player, but, you know, kind of vacillate between 0 and 2, but a real crappy putter. I mean, always, you know, 30, 33, 34, 36 putts. There was an instructor at Emerald Valley Golf Course where I play, and that's where our factory is now, who came across the directed force Reno 2.1, which is now what most people know as the lab, or the directed force 2.1. And he came across it in Tasmania. I mean, talk about, you know, serendipity.
Okay.
Brings it back, says, you got to check this thing out. He showed me, he had a revealer, and he showed me, you know, how it worked. And I was like, you know, and at the time, like I said, I was a really crappy putter. So
Wait. What's a revealer?
The revealer is the device that we use to demonstrate the tech, where it's the thing with the 2 bars, the putter, you know, hangs freely. It can spin any which way, and you put a normal putter in it, and you see it flop around like a fish on a line, and then you see ours, and it just stays, you know, perfectly square. So he shows me the technology. I'm intrigued, but at the time, I'm super into like the real pretty putters, the Napas, and the, you know, the Newports and stuff. Yeah, all that stuff. And I'm like, bro, this is not happening. And he's like, just give me 9 holes. So I go, and I one-putted the first 7 greens. Made about 150 feet worth of putts in 7 holes. Ran into a group, drove right back to the clubhouse, bought one on the spot. And I went from a 1 handicap to a plus 3.5 in about 6 weeks, just on the merits of the putter. And then the head fell off. Just pop. I had heard a click for a couple of rounds. I'm like, that's okay, I'm just going to ignore it. And then it just fell clear off, pulled it out of my bag. So I have to send it back. Bill, Bill Pressey is Bill Pressey the fourth. He's the guy who invented the putter. He was a Reno guy.
Okay.
So I send it back to Reno, and Bill reached out personally to apologize. And we just get to talking, and we become friends. We become friends on Facebook, and I see him arguing with everybody in all the golf blogs. And so I jump in there, and I'm helping him out and, telling him how it is. And then wouldn't have been more than a month or two later, he was going to close the doors. They were out of cash, and just things weren't falling into place. And me, my brother, and my dad were in a position to be able to buy out his existing partners, and I partnered with Bill.
Okay, you're leaving out what I know to be a very important part of the story. Why were you and your brother and your dad in position?
And to be fair, mostly my dad. So so my folks had built. I'm glad you're calling this out. It's a cool part of the story. My mom and my dad had bought a piece of property in Napa Valley during the recession. They got a good deal on this incredible property, and they spent years building this house. Like they'd do a chunk here, do a chunk there, and whatever, years and years. And then finally it's ready to go, and we got to live in it for a couple of years, or they got to live in it, and we visit. It was such a special place. Unfortunately, it burned in the Tubbs fire, that crazy fire that wiped out most of Santa Rosa. Mm-hmm. And the insurance check from that fire, that was most of the money that was used to buy out Bill's partners. The timing was just, was just right. And so, and his interest in doing it was to do something with his kids, and it was never supposed to be this thing. Like it was never supposed to be.
What was it supposed to be?
It was going to be they were taking my word on the tech, and that it was as profound as I thought it was. They were using the putters by now, and they were into them. I was stupid enough to think that I was just going to go out on a PGA Tour putting green and hand it to Tiger, and Tiger was going to be like, wow, you're right, it is better. And then, some big OEM was going to come by and pick it up. And then, we learned really quickly that wasn't how this was going to go down, and that it was going to be a grind. And then, I upended my life, and, I still had the bar and everything, but I, was participating in it a lot less. And this was what I was doing with my life now, was running a putter company. I think foolishly we probably thought it was like an 18 to 24 month flip, that we were just going to license or sell the technology to somebody else. And, and then as I learned about the golf business, that's not how this stuff goes. The OEMs generally don't innovate unless they have to, unless there's an impact on their market share or whatever. And so, nobody had any inclination that this would turn into what it turned into.
I've been around this game for some time now, and one of the things I think I appreciate most about the Chevron Championship is that it's about more than just great golf. Chevron's partnership with the LPGA and the LPGA Foundation is really about investing in women on the course, in business, and in the community. It's about opening doors, giving back, and making sure the work doesn't stop when the last putt drops. Because when you invest in women in sports and leadership, you're investing in the future for all of us. And honestly, that's just the right thing to do.
Birdied number 7 Pebble yesterday with the L.A.B.
That a boy.
Want somebody to take the picture for you?
So what kind of impact has L.A.B made? Well, here was the scene as we sat down to talk. The former musician is a rock star in golf. Everyday players give him the Taylor Swift treatment.
What was the original investment that your dad gave you, or your dad put into it?
I think all in was probably, I think it was a little under 500 grand. Paid out in a couple of chunks. I mean, it was not a crazy thing, it was doable. It was. I wish I could remember the structure of the original deal, but yeah, I mean, we had to make a couple payments over those first 24 months, I think it was. So pretty low impact investment given the insurance check that he'd just gotten, and and it was like any startup, it was tough. It was really tough. I don't think we were. I say it was tough. to be fair, now that I know a lot more than I used to about businesses and startups and entrepreneurialism and all that, like, in retro, now that I look back on it, knowing what I know, it actually did go pretty quick. We were profitable in about 18 months.
Why?
Unbeknownst to me, we were making smart choices. Like we didn't spend a lot of money. Like I look now and now obviously people come at me all the time with these ideas and these things that they want to do and these companies they want to start, and they over-raise and, crowd the cap table, and, we raised a smart amount. We did one raise.
For how much?
In 2019 for $500,000.
Right.
And at a reasonable valuation. It wasn't crazy, and we had the opportunity to choose the right people to work with on the, on that investment. I mean, gosh, as I look back on, if I had to pick one single businessy aspect that we did differently than every other company kind of does when they're starting stuff up, I would say it was around the marketing.
Yeah, I do want to get to that.
Yeah.
But I want to ask if there was, before we get to that,
Yeah.
because I know that's a unique aspect
Sure.
of the way you went about your business. Was there an inflection point for you and the business early where a decision that you made, aside from the marketing, but where things seemed to kind of assume a trajectory where you thought, ooh, we got something, we got a tiger by the tail here?
I called up the PGA Tour day one of owning the company asking, what do you do to get out on the putting green?
Right.
And they were like, well, you have to have a putter in play, or you have to have an invite from a specific player. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, how do we get an invite from a player if we can't get out there? And they're like, not my problem. And so I'm talking to this woman, her name is Susan Naylor from the Darrell Survey.
Yeah, the Darrell Survey is an interesting story.
And she's, just telling me how it is. And she's like, is there any other name that it'd be under? We had rebranded as L.A.B Golf. Prior, the company was called Directed Force. I was like, oh yeah, actually the company was called Directed Force. Looks through her system. She's like, you guys have actually had 9 plays on the Corn Ferry Tour. I'm like, what? Tim Wilkinson, he's a New Zealander, he's a Kiwi, left-handed guy, found the putter in a pro shop in Utah and started putting it in play. And so we had a tour credential day one. So that was...
For the Corn Ferry Tour?
Well, the rules are Champions Tour, Corn Ferry, or PGA. If you have X number of plays in a certain period of time, you get a credential to be on any of those 3 tours. So we get to start getting out there right away.
Okay.
And we had a credential on day one, which was, certainly as I see any number of other putter companies and startups out there, I mean, that's a huge deal. My God, is it hard to get access to those guys. I was living in Oregon at the time, but I knew we needed to open up some accounts. So I actually flew back home for the entire month of June, stayed with my parents because there was a million golf courses in Chicago, and I just could make
good ones.
Exactly, and could make some, set up some accounts. And then there was the Corn Ferry event at Ivanhoe, and then the next week was the senior players that happened to be at Exmoor, which was 20 minutes from where I grew up. Okay. So I worked those 2 events, and people were intrigued, and I was going out there, and I was like such a jackass. Like I would go up to these guys, like I didn't know all of the unspoken rules of how you are supposed to behave out there on tour. So I would
I'm still learning too, by the way.
My cheesy shtick was I go up with the revealer and I'd be like, you want to see my magic trick? And these guys would look at me cross-eyed, and but we got a couple putters in play that week. The following week at the senior players, I want to say we might have had 8 putters in play.
Really?
Champions Tour is a little different. All those guys are a little twitchy, and they're super happy to change putters every week. So it was, and they're excited when there's reps out there too. So that was, I still think about those 3 days all the time. I mean, that was one of the coolest, most surreal experiences of my life, and just meeting all these guys that were my heroes. And I remember shaking hands with Vijay Singh and his fingers wrapping around my hand twice. And we're cruising along, we're attending events, we're selling a few putters here and there. And then one day I see an Instagram post, or somebody sent me an Instagram post from Kelly Slater, the surfer. Yeah. And he had just bought the putter at Carlsbad Golf Center or something like that, and made a post about it. We find a way to get in touch with him, have a nice conversation. A few weeks later, right here at Pebble Beach, he ended up getting paired with Adam, and with Adam Scott in the Pro-Am. He's paired with Adam and Pat, and Kelly out-putted all of them all week. The dude's absolutely filling it up. the next week I get a call from Adam Scott saying, hey, I'm pals with Kelly. He told me about your putter. I'd love to try one. So I go to Riviera, and that was a really big week. That was getting him dialed in and getting these putters shipped overnight for him to try, and getting them fit properly. And he introduced me to a few other people. I got to walk with Ernie Els for a few holes, and that was to answer your question, like, was there a moment where it seemed like we've got something here? I mean, here are some of the finest players in the world with touch beyond belief that are feeling what we're selling. They're feeling the stuff that they're describing to me validated that whatever I was experiencing wasn't just happening in my own head.
You've got this dewy look in your eyes as you're describing
No,
this.
it was surreal. I mean, it was totally surreal, and like, and how honestly how nice everybody was. I mean, and how excited players, not just players, but just the whole ecosystem around the tour was to see somebody new there. Not all of them. A lot of people were really annoyed seeing somebody new, and there was a lot of competition and dirty looks and all kinds of stuff. But so Adam didn't put it in play that week. He put it in play the following week at what was then the Honda, and started having some success with it. And it wasn't a long putter; it was a short one, and it was a bright red one that he, So we're starting to get calls now. And you alluded to it earlier. He ended up leading the Masters through 2 rounds, and given that you guys are kind of digging into business and the moments that that happen here, so he's leading the Masters through 2 rounds. He's making putts, and the announcers have called out this giant red satellite dish that he's got, and we start getting a lot of calls, and
people figure out what it is.
They figured out what it is, and they're doing the research online. I'm starting to get texts from a bunch of strangers, and the phone starts ringing, and it's really intense, and there's this huge, just critical mass of intensity. So wakes up Saturday morning, somebody tells him it's going to rain, so he practices with the arm lock for about an hour. Right at the last minute, he has John run back to the locker room and grab the directed force. Lo and behold, he leaves everything kind of short and right, culminating on the 16th hole. He's got about an 18-inch putt, and camera zooms in on the big giant putter. He misses a putt. Phone stops ringing, and like all this, for as excited and elated as we all were about everything that was going on, now it's all over. It's all done. As I look back on it now, it was the best thing that ever could have happened to us.
Why?
For a couple reasons. Number one, now I know these stories. I know about equipment companies and how they go, and scaling is usually where people die. Like, when it happened, a great example, a couple great examples. Orlemar, Nick Kent was a great one. Todd Hamilton, 2 putts from 80 feet
hybrid,
with the hybrid, and everybody goes and buys a Nick Kent. And like, if you don't have the funding, the infrastructure, the personnel, the everything to meet that kind of demand, you die. Like, there's just, it just all falls apart, and you get overextended. And so had Adam ended up winning, or even honestly being in contention on Sunday, we wouldn't have been able to meet the demand. We wouldn't have been able to manufacture them, to the quality that we were looking for. You end up cutting corners, any number of decisions that people have made in those inflection points when things start to scale. And so it was enough of a bump to put us on the map and to let everybody know that the tech was real, that we existed, that there's this new technology out there, but not so much that that it overwhelmed us. So that was one reason why that was one of the best breaks. The next best break was, or the other aspect of that really helped me was realizing we can't rely on the tour. Like, if what we're sitting here waiting for is some great moment to happen on the PGA Tour, like, we're toast. I mean, that's a crapshoot. You're flying all around the country to follow the PGA Tour around in the hopes of catching a 1 out of 100 break, or a 1 out of 120 break, whatever the thing is. Like, we can't put all our eggs in that basket. At the time, we didn't have the money to be flying around the country every week. And by the way, you don't sell putters to tour players.
Right, you give them to tour
exactly.
players.
And so we wanted, so that was when the marketing really shifted to us honoring you and me and everybody else out there who's looking for some hope, for their game. And that was when that's what we started to do, was to market towards you and me, to market towards the people that were actually going to buy the putters versus some, silly pipe dream that we would one day be able to say #1 putter on tour. Like that's just not, that was never going to work for us.
One of the things that we had started to talk about before is your marketing strategy was very unusual.
Yeah.
Didn't pay players and didn't do advertising, at least on a large scale.
Right.
And I remember you told me once that what it was all about was you were kind of like online,
Totally.
in discussion boards. And it blew up. And I know there's some stories about the dimensions of that and, how it all kind of developed. And you really credit a lot of that with the popularity of L.A.B, right?
100%. So before L.A.B, one of the things that I was involved in was actually local politics. And I chaired a community council that in sort of an embattled neighborhood. And one of the things that I had done to help was I started a Facebook group, and it's politics, man. So I mean, everybody's got real strong opinions, and I learned how to cut through people's defensiveness online and sort of the online chest beating and all that stuff. And those were the skills that actually served me the best with L.A.B, because we had the world's ugliest putter, and so that was we were evangelizing the technology in Facebook groups and on Golf WRX and all these different blogs and stuff, and having conversations with these folks, realizing that golfers are some of the most stubborn people on planet Earth, and are so traditional, and here we are, cutting down, decades-old narratives about how putters work, throwing shade at, technology of the past, and we had to learn how to do that gracefully, and we started to get through. If you go, if you're a real golf nerd, like you've been on Club Junkies and Golf Traders Forum, and some of these Facebook groups where people just bicker about, ridiculous stuff all night long, about golf equipment, and slowly but surely, a couple people sick enough of me and Bill, arguing with them, and we're like, all right, I'll give it a try, and just person by person by person, people were like, damn, the thing works, and I wish I could sit here and tell you that this was all deliberate and I had some big master plan. I didn't. All I knew to do was what I could do in a given moment, and what I could do in a given moment while I was, at home at night, pacing around the house figuring out how we're going to make this company work, was I could jump online and I could talk to a few folks and, hopefully convince them to give it a try. It spread so organically kind of in that 2019 to 2021-ish, period. And then all of a sudden we have skills. We have an online foundation. It's mind-blowing to people that the inventor and the CEO are online talking about the putter, and then COVID hits, and obviously it was a mess, and it was a horrible thing for all of us. We know what it did for golf. There's nothing except golf online, and there we were already,
a presence.
Yeah, ready to go, and so that really, really helped us sort of accelerate the growth, but in a way that was manageable.
Give me a sense of, and if you remember, how the sales did, what the trajectory of sales at that time was.
15, 20, so I think 2020 was the first year we cracked $1 million in sales. I want to say we did 3.5 in 21. 22 would have been about 15. And then 23 we did 60. And then in 23 was when Lucas Glover won.
Okay, so you went from $1 million in 20 to $60 million in sales in 4 years?
Yeah, maybe even a little less.
Now, are you getting up in the morning and saying, how?
Well, for starters, I wasn't getting up in the morning because I wasn't sleeping. But,
it made sense. So you're just saying, it made sense to you? It's kind of like, of course?
We were doing all right.
You're doing all right, and then here's this guy who was struggling, and all of a sudden he uses your putter and he wins twice in a row.
Yeah, he won back-to-back weeks.
Yeah.
So, and what a lot of people remember that piece. So here's a fun Lucas Glover story. So and how this all came to be. So it was just before the U.S. Open that year that he had picked up the putter, and you know, and I obviously knew who he was, and I knew about his struggles with the putter. I mean, he had, you know, a well-documented, straight-up case of the yips. I mean, it was an issue. You know, as the story goes, he said, "I want the exact same putter that Adam Scott has. I don't want to know about it. I don't want anything. It's just like, just give me, you know, we're about the same build. I'll just use that." We actually didn't send him the exact same one because Adam's got some funny specs, but we sent him a putter, and then I'd only heard that he was using it, and then I kind of forgot. And I turned on Golf Channel one day, and it's, you know, golf's longest day, the, you know, U.S. Open qualifier. Opening segment was a playoff that had happened at one of the sites that Lucas was in, and I see him, he misses a 2-foot putt to lose the playoff with our putter, with the long, you know, mez. I'm like, well, there goes Lucas Glover, you know, and that's that. Apparently, wouldn't have been more than 30 minutes after he missed that putt, he texted Liam saying, "This thing is about to change my life," or something to that effect. And we were like, "Did you see the putt you just missed?" And you know, he didn't care. What he did remember was he shot 63 that morning and made more putts than he had in a really long time. From that week on, he didn't finish outside the top 6 for, I think it was 4 straight events before he then won the first one in Greensboro.
Right.
And then won the first playoff event with it. And
all the while, he's talking about it.
100%.
So you're going to give this up now. I mean, not right away because you sold the company, but you're still going to function as co-CEO, is that right?
So now my official title is founder. The CEO is a guy named Robert Johnson. Robert's been in the industry for a bazillion years, crazy smart guy, and he's killing it. But yeah, it's different.
Yeah, how difficult is that going to be? I mean, this is your baby.
Yeah. I mean, you said it. It's my baby, and you know, I've got a couple kids, and like, kids grow up. The good news is, like, I'm still very involved in the stuff that means the most to me, which is the customer and the product. So I'm still in the R&D room every day.
Are you?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and
You're still a geek.
oh yeah, and that's what our new owners are counting on me to do. I mean, that is my job now. My job was never finance and HR, and, you know. And for the most part, I get to live in my sweet spot anyway. And I still help out with marketing. I'm still the one handling, you know, answering all the DMs on Instagram. And,
Are you?
Oh yeah. Although I'll probably give that up pretty soon. It's getting a little tedious with all the teenagers asking for free putters. But it's, I don't even want to say bittersweet because it ain't that bitter, man.
Well, your story is a fairy tale. And I think my favorite part of it is that you, who barely graduated high school, are going to speak at the Wharton School, the University of Pennsylvania. Sam, I can't thank you enough for coming to spend some time with us.
It is an honor, dude. This is so cool, and this seems like it's going to be great. Congrats to you guys.
From your lips to God's ears, as my grandmother used to say.
You know, you can't talk about the business of golf without talking about the explosive growth in the women's game. More women play today than at any point in history, and young women, those under 35, are the fastest growing segment. Here at the Big Swing, we are pleased to be partnering with our friends at Chevron on a new year-long feature called Powering the Women's Game, where we will highlight the massive impact this trend is having on the industry. And what better way to kick off the conversation about women's golf than at the LPGA's 75th anniversary. Women's professional golf has come a long, long way. Judy Rankin was 17 years old in 1962 when she turned professional.
They were very interesting times. You could share a room with another player and it'd cost you $8 a night. There weren't very many professionals. I mean, I think it might have been maybe 40, maybe, and nobody was making any money. I'm not exactly sure why it was a reasonable thing to do, but it turned out well. That's what I like to say. It turned out very well.
What do you remember the biggest challenges of playing women's professional golf at that time were?
You know, through the 60s, we did not play a lot of great golf courses. We did from time to time, but it was certainly the exception and not the rule. We played a lot of housing development golf courses where the sponsors wanted people to come, you know, think about living there. Even almost into 1970 and so on, you might go play Monday in a Pro-Am for $200.
How much was your first paycheck in golf?
$50.
$50?
More than Jack Nicklaus. His was $33.
Why do I think you've joked about that with him?
Well, I have.
Things have changed. Last year, more than 40 players on the LPGA Tour earned at least $1 million in prize money. Life for these professionals is considerably different than it once was. Last spring, Nellie Corda found herself at the Met Gala.
It was amazing. It was really surreal. I didn't think I was living in like a reality. It was like a pinch me moment. I've been lucky enough to see the LPGA grow from 2011 when my sister was a rookie. And I think there was just 20 events. I mean, the purses weren't high, and to see it to what it is today is just incredible.
Still, despite its success, women's professional golf remains an enterprise that has had to go the extra mile to make its mark.
One thing that was true in the past and needs to remain true is once in a while you have to step out and do what's good for all. And that's what makes for a great organization, I think. And there were always people who did that. It was Carol Mann.
Yeah.
It was Kathy Whitworth. It was people who put aside what they were going to do, Betsy Rawls.
And you think that's necessary?
I do think it's necessary. I don't think that burden should fall on one person all the time.
Right.
But I think it's necessary because we have to get out of what is a big world of golf, but the outside world is larger yet. And you have to appeal to people and get them into the golf world. You have to get people to have a little tiny emotional involvement with you, where they want to see how you do, and they want to see how good you are.
There's more eyeballs on sports, on women. I would say the way that you can continue to let it grow is we need the investment from network companies. We need the investment from the outside to, you know, push us forward. We can't do it by ourselves. It all has to come together, and we all have to do it together. But when it comes to the talent and the stories, like, we'll take care of that, but we need someone to also back us. And we are seeing that. We've seen it every year that something impressive comes in and they come and back us, and it continues to help us grow. But we have to continue doing that. We'll take care of our part, and then we need someone to also help us to get to where we need to be.
Hi, this is Marcus Allen, and you're listening to My Big Swing Moment. I remember this vividly, too, because I was a 13-year-old kid playing Pop Warner football. I think it was Bantam Leagues. And we were playing the Compton Comets in Southeast San Diego. They drove down, they got off the bus, and the age limit was 13, but they looked a lot older and a lot bigger. But we met on the field of battle, and we won the game. We were certainly thrilled, but they weren't. And they said to us, well, wait till you come to Compton, because we had to go up there and play them a couple of weeks later. And they said they were going to kick our butts. And so we drove up, and when we got there, it was a pretty intimidating environment. But what happened there is I'll never forget. I played the best game that I've ever played. I was all over the place. I was a defensive player at the time. I must have made 30 tackles or so. I was just going crazy. And then I walked away with newfound confidence, because what I didn't tell you is I think that the people in San Diego had sort of an inferiority complex. And we always thought the people in Los Angeles were, 100 times the population. Everything was bigger and better there, and we were just a small little city in Southern California. but I walked away with confidence that I can play with anybody. And that was my big swing moment.
Well, you know what they say, from humble beginnings. What started in 1954 in a parking lot in Dunedin, Florida, 70 plus years later, now, well, it covers more than 1 million square feet at the Orange County Convention Center in Orlando. Of course, we're talking about the PGA Merchandise Show, and Molly Cahalane joins us now. Molly, as soon as we're done here, we're going to hop on a plane and head down there. And, you know, you can get just about anything in the Merchandise Show. I know it's your first trip there. Here's my single favorite thing, and I don't know if this group is exhibiting there, but I think it's indicative of the fact that you can just about get anything in golf. This is a golf bag sold by 7-Eleven. I mean, when you think of 7-Eleven, isn't golf the first thing you think of?
Oh, absolutely. I know when I walk into a brick and mortar 7-Eleven to get my big golf, I'm looking for those golf bags.
Yeah, you just want to know where they are. All right, like I said, first time to the show, as we call it in the industry. You know, you're noodling around. I'm sure you're curious. What'd you find out about it?
I'm really looking forward to it, first of all. I've been poking around trying to learn as much as I can about the show before I get there to make sure I'm not overwhelmed. But
Good luck with that.
yeah, I already am, and we haven't even left yet. What I did learn is that this is going to be the biggest show in PGA Show history.
Right.
There's a waiting list of brands to get in.
Any idea just in terms of numbers of like how many people are there or, you know, products or anything like that?
So more than 11,000 exhibitors are going to be there. And we know in 2025, there was $885 million in purchasing power. Well, that's $2.2 billion in annual sales. It's going to be bigger this year. More attendees than ever, 33,000 last year, bigger this year. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to find you.
Yeah, well, that may work out just fine for you. Is there any product in particular that kind of piques your imagination? Or, you know, I know that they sell a lot of clubs there, or at least not, they don't retail sell a lot of clubs
Yeah,
there, but
careful.
they're responsible for a lot of clubs, you know, innovations in club technology and a lot of new equipment coming out.
So last year, from what I learned poking around, there were two big drivers that stood out. That's the Ping G440 and the Callaway Elite. Slightly different price points, but those were the two biggest drivers this year.
Right.
So as you said, there aren't specific numbers released, but I found out that there are about 1.5 million drivers sold in 2025. And a big part of that came from the PGA Show.
Right. Drivers have a tendency to be the product that has the shortest life cycle. And every couple of years, we're seeing new drivers, but putters too.
Putters too. So that's actually almost twice as many as drivers. So 2.2 million sold. And I have a fun comparison for that one.
Let's bring it.
All right. So 2.2 million putters sold in 2025.
Right.
That is twice as many putters sold as The Life of the Showgirl by Taylor Swift vinyls sold on the first day. That was 1.2 million, which was a record in vinyls. You know, I love a Taylor Swift comparison.
You know, so we're always looking for ways to characterize how big golf is. I guess that's a pretty good one, in league with Taylor Swift. So Greg Norman was a guest here on the Big Swing a week ago. Obviously, we talked a good deal about LIV Golf, and there's more LIV Golf news that followed last week after we had that show.
So we've been talking a lot about LIV, and especially with Greg Norman talking about how even if it does not succeed in the U.S., so long as it does well internationally, it has staying power. So TNT Sports, which is owned by Warner Brothers Discovery, has signed a broadcast deal earlier this month with LIV Golf for the UK and Ireland, and that puts all 14 LIV Golf events on TNT Sports. There's also a streaming component to that deal where everything will be on Discovery Plus in the UK and Ireland as well. The previous international deal for LIV was streaming only, which we love streaming in the US, but that streaming internationally is not nearly as big as it is here. So putting that on traditional television in the UK and Ireland is a big deal for LIV.
Yeah, and it hadn't been on traditional TV
No,
in the UK and Ireland.
it hadn't. And there's more interest now, too, this year, because as we know, LIV is moving to a 72-hole format, right? So that actually creates more inventory for those international broadcasters because it's going from 3 days to 4 days. So there is higher interest in signing those TV deals.
All right, Molly, next stop Orlando. Look forward to seeing you down there. And a reminder, Molly is hard at work getting ready to produce our newsletter here at Big Swing. You want to find more information out about that, we invite you to go to our website. You'll be the first to know, bigswingmedia.news. Molly, thanks so much. One last thing. In the world of media, the popular narrative these days is that sports is where it's at because it's one of the only remaining things that still constitutes must-see TV. For that reason, and probably a few others, the games we play seem to be lining up across the board to reimagine themselves and evolve. I don't know about you, my head's spinning. It wasn't that long ago, Tiger Woods was facing serious heat as a college undergrad because Arnold Palmer bought him a meal. People were talking about how a cheeseburger might actually end up losing Woods his amateur status. Amateur status. Remember when that was a thing? Now, we've got a softball pitcher at Texas Tech who signed $1 million NIL deal. Whatever. It seems to have taken us no time at all to just blow right through our NIL outrage. This year, Baylor actually signed a player who'd played 50 professional games in Europe and had been drafted by an NBA team 2 years ago. Baseball has ghost runners in extra innings. NFL kickoffs look like some kind of strange playground game that just got made up in the lunchroom. Please, I know it's in the name of safety. No hate mail, at least no more than usual. And the PGA Tour is in the midst of generational upheaval. Why not? If you're standing still, you're clearly not moving forward. Which brings us to the LPGA. These are heady times for women's sports, from basketball and soccer to hockey and lacrosse. One of the coolest things I think I've seen in my travels is little boys actually wearing Caitlin Clark jerseys. And why wouldn't they? If you love the game, could you aspire to do any better? The point is, the table is set for the best women golfers in the world to catch that wave, but somehow it just hasn't happened yet. The association has a new commissioner who's smart, dynamic, and bursting with energy. And because as golf fans, so many of us play the game, we also watch it, we really understand how extraordinary these women are. It was once a grade school insult to say, you throw like a girl. Well, let me just say this. If you want to tell me I swing like Nelly Corda, I'll take that 8 days a week. The LPGA celebrates its 75th anniversary this year. It is the oldest professional women's sports league in America. It has a distinguished history. It should have a vibrant future. I'm not sure what's really standing in the way. I just know that now would seem to be a time like never before, to start to make that happen. That's it for this episode of The Big Swing. I'm Jimmy Roberts. We look forward to seeing you next week. And remember, find us on YouTube and give us a follow and leave us a comment too and subscribe. That's it. We'll see you next week.
The Big Swing with Jimmy Roberts is executive produced by Jimmy Roberts and Adrian Gallagher. It's produced by Alex Resnick and edited by Sarah Chovnick and Joe Canali. The show is a production of Big Swing Media. Fred Buescher, CEO, Jimmy Roberts, COO. Special thanks to Gil Capps, Jackson Roberts, Frankie Brescia, and Jack Joyner.